Boom! All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to get started with saving some time. I know there's so many tasks in your day that the 24 hours gets consumed really quickly. Today's guest is going to talk to us all about saving some time. So let's get the show on the road. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Are you feeling overwhelmed by your ever-growing to-do list? As entrepreneurs, we're all about hustling hard and working smarter, not harder. That's why we've invited a true systems expert to the show today. Our guest has been sharing his secrets on how to build effective systems that save time and get more done. Whether you're struggling to manage your workload or trying to scale your business, our guest has the solution that you've been looking for. He's a pro at helping entrepreneurs like you streamline their workflow and boost their productivity. So let's welcome to the show, Mr. Shreyash. I knew I was going to butcher it. How do I say his name? Say it for me.
Shreyash.
Shreyash Gupta. All right, Shreyash. I knew I was going to butcher it, man. I tried to say it like 4 times and I still messed it up. My apologies, my friend. Welcome to the show.
You're good. You can call me Shrey, though.
Shrey works for me. That is definitely a lot easier to handle. All right, Shrey it is. All right, my brother. I'm just going to start off with the whole productivity thing. I mean, everybody struggles to manage their workflow effectively. It feels like everything gets piled on, one thing after another. And like we have 24 hours in the day, but for some reason we run out of day and we don't get our stuff done. How did you overcome that challenge? What did you do to help streamline your workload?
Yeah, absolutely. And I am in no means like a big expert on this, but I have made enough mistakes to know what not to do. And that's, I think, like a big part on how you can not be swarmed with the stuff that you have to do. I'll start off with a quick story. When I was in high school, I know a lot of high schoolers are listening to this. I was not a great student at all. Like, in no means, all of my work, all of my homework would swamp me at the end of the day. I would pretty much not do it for the most part. But going into college, starting a new business with my friends, having a part-time job, an internship, that got me into a position where I had at least 30, 35 things on a day-to-day basis where I had to get things done. Now, it's not something that was ever taught to me on how you get all of these different kinds of things done on a day-to-day basis. So what do? I go on the internet and I literally Googled the first thing. I was like, how to get more stuff done. And that was the most basic search I did. And funny enough, those results are a no-brainer. Put your phone away, write it down, don't go outside, just like stay on your desk, do focus work. But none of it made sense to me ever. That stuff is very generic. It never made sense till the time I actually put it into practice. Coming into college, that's something I realized in the education system, that the one time I made a list of all the things I had to do, and one day for all of my classes, I did that for one semester, and literally my GPA went from like in the 2s to a 4, literally by just doing the things that were on my list on a day-to-day basis. And that just opened up my brain on, if I can just get the stuff done, write it down, see it in front of me, and check them off, like literally make a tick, and feels good in the heart, and you see the end result. And that's something where you feel reinforced. And that's how I started on my journey of how getting my stuff done on a day-to-day basis.
That list is super powerful. I call mine the get shit list done, or the get shit done list, right? That's literally what it is for me, because that's what, like, a lot of times there are so many things on your list that it gets difficult to like really break down which one's the most important. And that's where you get that word prioritize, right? Priority literally means the very first root word is prior. It's right before. So before everything else comes in your day, these are the things that are the most important. And it's funny because I feel like when we develop our own habits, oftentimes the habits that we have are not in line with what we want to accomplish overall. So when you have the list, it kind of forces you to start implementing these things that you want to do on a regular basis. Let me ask you from like an entrepreneur standpoint. You got people who are struggling to maybe delegate tasks, right? And that might be a little bit different. They don't want to micromanage their team. What's some advice you might give on somebody who's building systems to delegate tasks effectively? It's one thing for you to create a list. How about to do it for other people?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that you have to look at is all the people that are in your team. What is the skills? Do they, what skills do they have, and what skills do they perform better than you? Now, when you have the list of things that you have to do, like your list of tasks, and you know the people who are on your team, when you know the skills that they have and the tasks on your hand, you can literally make like a list like this on left and right, and you can, what I started doing was matching them to the person who would be suited right for those tasks. So if person A is really good at writing emails and I have to send out 200 cold emails, I know I can do it, but guess what? Who's going to do it better than me? The first person. So when I know the skills that each person has, I can match them and then be like, okay, here is the task on hand. This is the description of it. And one thing that's really important that I never thought was important to tell anyone is, here's the ultimate outcome that I am looking for. And this is how it should look like when it's done. So when you do these two things, the person knows the importance of it, and the person knows how it should look like at the end of it. And that's, I think, really important when you're delegating stuff, is knowing what the skills they have according to the tasks that you have on hand, and let them know how it should look like at the end. So just as an example, I took the example of a cold email. I asked the person to send a cold email to these 200 people on my list. Now, a cold email could be the most random thing, like you can have it very poorly formatted, just get the job done. That's not what I'm looking for. As a business owner, what I would be looking for is a very specific, give a one line on what we do, tell the potential client on how we are, what we are doing, and how it can help them, their business. Then tell them if they're ready to connect for a minute, like 15 minutes of their time, so we can tell them how we can help them. This is very specific outcome that I will tell that person on. This is what I am looking for, and then they know the final outcome. Okay, this is the structure he's looking for. These are the people. Now the person has a direction and how the final outcome should look like, and now they're going to go out for compose that email and send it out to those 200 potential clients.
I like that. So first is match up the skill sets and the tasks that need to be done. So you have to kind of know your team, right? Know what skill sets, where their strengths and weaknesses are, and then align the tasks in that particular that thing that you're looking to accomplish with that skill set. The other thing you said, which was kind of cool, and I think this, you're right, it gets skipped a lot, is you need to explain the outcome. Like, your team has got to know what the end result is. If you're just assigning tasks and they don't know what the end result is, who knows how they're going to get it done? But in there, I think that the other piece that you need to leave room for is their creativity to achieve that task, that end outcome, right? Because at the end of the day, this is where the micromanaging comes into play. It's like, look, these are the things that I need done. This is why we need to do it. Ready, go. All right. And then allow them for some of those mistakes to be made, because that's kind of the hard part in entrepreneurship, especially when your name is on the building, or, your name is on the business, that the people that you bring on are going to make mistakes. And when they do make mistakes, they make the mistake, you take all the heat, and that's kind of the downside to it. But on the flip side,
Yeah,
when they do really well, they get all the credit, and you're here giving them the round of applause. But again, the idea here is to obtain that objective. So how do you balance the need to get work done efficiently, but also maintaining the quality output? So now we're matching the skill sets with people. We are giving them that outcome. How do we maintain quality?
absolutely. When I started my business, whenever you are in a business or starting a business, there are about more than 1,000 fires you need to put out at any random point. Now, we're only like four people here. We cannot put out 1,000 fires. It's just not humanly possible unless we have like multiple arms and we can duplicate ourselves. That's not possible. What we can do is take a look at those 1,000 fires, take a hard look, just list them out. These are the 10 or 20 fires we really need to put out right now because we only have limited hours in a day. So if these are the 10 fires we need to put out right now in this week, then our brain energy is what we spend on any problem. We need to put all of our brain energy in solving these problems to the best of our abilities. So if we solve if these 10 problems at a high scale, at good quality, produce good outcome of it, then those other 990 fires, some of them may just go out just because we did a great job on this one. A lot of them are very interrelated. And if not, then we did a great job on these. Now we know how to tackle the other ones. But if you do a very sloppy job on just some random 10 problems, but you were like, oh, I need to put out these 1,000, let me take on 100 problems for these four people, you're just going to do a very sloppy job on all of them. And the fires are not going to go off, and they're going to come back up sooner or later, and you're going to have to keep putting fires off. And I don't think so. It's very efficient or even fun to put off fires, which you tried to put off a week ago.
It's funny, man. It's like almost you'll be adding fuel to the fire instead of trying to put out fires. You're the one who's creating more
Yeah.
of a mess. Um, I like how you mentioned the brain energy, because a lot of times the focus is very difficult to get down. But if we have that definite purpose in the day, it really allows your brain energy to focus in on that one task. There's that book
Mhm.
called The One Thing, where it's literally doing that exact thing. Look, you got a bunch of stuff on your priority list, but what's the one thing that you can do today that if you solve this one problem, it was almost like a domino effect to take care of a lot of the other problems? I think that's an issue that a lot of business owners have. So for
Yeah.
those owners, for those business entrepreneurs out there who are wearing multiple hats, right? They have a hard time focusing on one task because there is a lot of things that need to get done in the day. How do you, what strategies do you recommend for them prioritizing that workload? We use lists. Is there anything else that we can do to kind of say, okay, which ones are the important ones? Which is the fire that if I put this one out, it's going to help me with a lot of other problems? Is there a strategy to kind of prioritize those?
Yeah, there really is a really good strategy that I use, and this is I always tell my friends when I tell them this thing. I'm like, I'll get you in on this secret. Whenever you have a bunch of fires to put out, list them out, make a list. That's a no-brainer. But then rank them on, if you put this fire out today, your business may go, your business may die later in stages than earlier. So if today, let's say I have to develop this specific thing and the customer needs it by next week, and the second task is a new feature we're trying to develop to test it, see if the customers like it or not. Well, my priority is to deliver the first piece of feature that the customer wants next week. That's the priority. So then in that case, you list them out and you give it a number. You give it a 1 to 10. 1 meaning it's not that important, and 10 meaning you really need to get it done as soon as possible. When you give it that star rating, go sorted to decreasing to ascending, descending to ascending. The highest stars come on top. And then the top four that you have, 4 or 5, 3 to 5, that's like the sweet spot. 3 to 5 problems that you marked as very important, very critical to your business, to your day, you tackle those because those are the ones that you need in the short term that are going to help you in the long term.
Uh, so if my business is going to die today if I don't get this thing done, that is an absolute 10. This is a priority. This is a priority. Well, maybe a priority 1. Maybe we label it as a 1, right? So that's a priority 1. It got to get done today, because if it does not get done today, we're done. We're kaput. We're out of business.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of like Stephen Covey, right? What's urgent and important? Urgent and important needs to get done right now. Urgent and not important needs to get done. It's on the list, but it's just not on the right now, this very moment list. And so that's kind of a cool way to kind of organize this so that you're effectively picking which ones you want to do today. Look, we're living in an era where things are just moving fast paced, right? In the business environment, things are just changing. We had Silicon Valley Bank go down this last week, which kind of shows you there's some trouble in the financial sector here coming along the way. How important is it to have some of these systems automated so that you can have some of these types of tasks that you don't have to think about? They're just automatically triggering, whether it's a task that needs to get generated, whether it's an email prompt, whether it's a whatever system. How important is it to automate? And can you give me some examples of how you're automating things so that people don't have to think about it very much?
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching an interview with Elon Musk a little bit ago, and one of the key things that he really emphasizes on is how important it is to delete random stuff and then automate the stuff that is really working. And when you have a small team, I'm just going to talk about small team because that's the biggest, most experience I have. A small team, stuff like I sent out a cold email today. If I'll create an automation in Zapier, for example. If a person responds to my cold email, then this automated response is going to go to them, sending them a link to my calendar so they can schedule a meeting, or asking them for their calendar. Because if I'm sending 1,000 emails a week, there are some people who are going to respond, and I already have the 1,000 fires I need to put out. Now, if I have 15 more emails come in every week, now I have to go do those too, and my brain energy can only do so much. So if I automate the process of sending that second email, then I just saved myself at least 30 to 50 minutes of my whole week to put out other fires. That's like the simplest way that I automate anything. And another example I can take is I automate where I get my reminders. So if I am at home right now, there are some reminders. For example, like I'll set a reminder to water my plant. Well, I don't want that reminder when I am working with my team because that's just a waste of my brain energy. So I automated it so when I get home, and that's when I get the reminder to water my plant. But when I'm at work, I don't get any of that. So I don't have to use my brain energy to sort through my actual reminders list to see what I have to do with my business today than what stuff I have to do at home. So I keep it separate, automated to when I get what reminders. Just like two very simple automated things that I did.
I like that. I use a lot of automation processes myself. The podcast, for example, the way people book a spot on the show makes it so much easier for me, especially when I'm not having to deal with back and forth emails like, are you available at this time? Are you available on this day? Is this day open? I don't have to deal with that. There's an automation in place for them to go and pick a spot on the calendar. Reminders, right? Because once you book a client on a call, having to remind them. I mean, our show books out 10 weeks in advance. So I got to make sure that I'm sending constant emails or text message reminders to make sure that they're there. I don't want to have to remember to do that every day. I have an automated system that does that for me. And then now we're moving into an era of AI, which is super awesome. I literally have an AI content creation blueprint that I share with people. You can grab that, by the way. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. But you can literally use AI like ChatGPT, which is what I use to help create a lot of the outline and structure for the show. And it's just all these things are time saving activities. It allows me to create content at scale because I've prioritized the tasks, I've automated a lot of the process, and it gives me the ability to do with my time a little more than I had intended before in the past. You got a lot of entrepreneurs
Yeah.
out there that if they don't use some of these systems, like what you're talking about, the list, the priorities, the automations, they're going to deal with burnout, right? And that's kind of that's
Oh
a
yeah.
huge struggle for entrepreneurs. Burnout, having that work life balance. So, tell me, like in your experience, how can building an effective system help alleviate some of the burnout, alleviate some of that work life balance issues that they might have?
Yeah, for sure. Systems are literally nothing other than knowing that that stuff is going to work with minimal effort from you. Your car is a system. You literally put your keys like this, and then your whole car just turns on. You can move. That's like the whole system that's inside it. That's the same thing as having a system in your business. I There are days where I feel a little burned out. I just want to take a break. I just want to go like on a hike. What do I do? Well, I have my phone on me. I may turn it off, but there are times where when my team needs me, so I will not be on my computer. I will make sure I turn off all of my emails. I'll turn off everything, but I'll have that one person that is on my team that I know I can delegate all of my work to that person, and I can say, if anyone needs me, I'll literally change the Slack status and say, if anyone needs me, contact this person, and they'll contact that person. He knows how I think. He knows the kind of decisions I make, and he can handle a lot of things, and that just alleviates so much pressure, so much stress of being there 24/7. Just because I know I can trust that person to take some of those decisions for me for that day, because I just need to recharge. I really need to recharge, and that's, I think, a really good way to just get recharged, not get burned out.
Yeah, man, building a business, what I've learned from doing this over and over again, I've built businesses where at the end of the day, I didn't have a business. I just owned my job. And that was one of those realizations as I got older, starting to build new things. I don't want to have to deal with that. I want to design my life and then have a business that fits around my life versus having a life that fits around my business. It's a completely different mindset, especially for people who are
Yeah,
looking for just some side hustles versus building. They don't want to be the next Elon Musk. They just want to be able to have something on the side that they love to do, that's fun, that maybe pays for their car payment every month or something. And that's totally okay as well.
yeah,
Especially when you're talking about that, the burnout feeling or that work life balance feeling, like you want to avoid those things, then kind of come to a realization yourself on what kind of business you want to build. So let me ask you about like measuring the effectiveness of a system that you make, right? So like anything else, when we start implementing some of these priority systems, some of these time saver systems, there's always going to be some adjustments, right? That didn't work out too well. Let me change this. This didn't work out well. Let me adjust here. And as your life kind of grows, you're going to make some of these adjustments. So what's your advice for making adjustments to those systems when they're not working as well as maybe you intended in the first place?
yeah. Oh, so let me just rephrase what you were saying. You're saying a lot of times you have to change these systems because life changes, circumstances changes, and how I can adapt to those changes. Okay,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
that's very true. That's extremely true. There are times where I'll take like a very basic example that everyone can understand. I used to use Gmail for the most part, and then with my job, I would use Outlook because that's the only email service that they use. Then for my business, I had to use another email service like Zoho. Now I have three of these email clients that on a day-to-day basis, I have to go from Gmail to Outlook to Zoho. Now to some people, they'll just adapt to it. They're like, oh yeah, I have three apps, and then I just go through them. But for me, I did this for 1 week where I saw how many emails I got in a day, and then I saw my screen time on all of them. And then the next week, what I did was I paid extra for the Zoho service, and I got all of my emails consolidated into just Outlook. That's it. All of my 9 email IDs that I have in Outlook, and deleted all the rest of the others just out of my phone and my computer. Had that one app. Now, every time I go in that app, I would check the same amount of emails, no change in that. And my screen time went down with 54 minutes by every day, literally every day. Now, I was not switching between other apps. I'm just in one and I'm just swiping between emails, responding to them really quickly. And I was like, if I'm saving that much time a day over the span of a month, I'm literally saving like hours and hours on that. I'm literally saving like more than a day of time. So that was just the smallest change that I had to adapt to, and then it's just saving so much time, and that's, you just have to adapt to those things.
I like that. I did something very similar. I started using a program called Go High Level to manage a lot of what I do on the podcast. Everything from all my social media platforms, communicating on one spot, text message communicating in one spot, landing pages and fill out forms and calendars all in one spot. Having everything in one place makes it so much easier. And it doesn't mean that you're absent or avoiding any of the other platforms. You're just bringing it all together so that you're in one spot to be able to communicate. Because you're right, it doesn't take long to switch from one app to another. But when you add up that time that you're doing it over and over throughout the day, that can really be time consuming. And like you said, you saving an hour here, an hour there, all of a sudden you add it up for a month. And it's like, I saved almost a whole day's worth of work in that time. You add it up for a year, maybe it's a week to 2 weeks worth of time simply by making one of those changes. And if you like really break it down, like how much you're making in a week or how much you're making in a day, that wasted time can really add up to, tens of thousands of dollars that you're saving just by really narrowing down where you're working. And that's a great way to think about it. All right. I got one more question for you. You got business owners who are just getting started, right? They're at the beginning stages. They want to avoid feeling overwhelmed, maybe by building a system or building a process. What advice do you give to someone who's just getting started at the beginning so that they can get to the point where they're like, okay, yeah, I have a problem of multiple emails and yeah, I'm going to get there, but how do I start off?
Absolutely. First thing, I'll start off, and I'm extremely brutally honest. You will feel overwhelmed, and that's totally normal. There will be days where you, like the example of 1,000 fires, you will have 2,000 fires some days, and you will be extremely overwhelmed. And to counter that, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and then open your eyes, and then list down all the things you have, and then do the most important tasks, least important tasks, and then sort them out, go do them, see if you have opportunities on if you can optimize something. This is something that I did every week, at least 2 or 3 hours on like a Saturday or Sunday. I would go walk out, sit next to the swimming pool, and then just sit there with my no phone, no nothing. I'll just have a piece of paper. I don't write on paper. I have an iPad. This is totally out of the ordinary for me, but I would take no technology with me, just a paper and pen, and I would just sit there and I would think, how can I remove some things so I can save more time? So can the email thing, I was sitting and I was like, why am I using 3 emails? That just doesn't make sense. That was just one of the revelations I had. Sometimes I'll be thinking that I'm using like 4 different notes app, and that just doesn't make sense. My team is asking for some notes, but it's in some other app. Now I'm causing them to slow down because I'm not organized. Then I will go home and be like, oh, I just had this idea. I need to consolidate all of it in one because I am creating an inconvenience to my team and they can't be waiting on me. Just these opportunities you will find on how to optimize if you sit alone with your thoughts. And once you optimize these things, these fires are never going to come out again in the future. You will have solved them. You only feel overwhelmed when you don't give yourself enough time to think about opportunities and problems that are currently going, and solving them on a quality basis. That's the quality word is extremely important when you're talking about those. So you will feel overwhelmed, but take time for yourself alone with your problems, and you will figure them out with a piece of paper.
I like that, man. There's an old saying that, if you take time to sharpen your sword or sharpen your saw, you're going to get a lot more tree cutting done. And I know I butchered that whole line, but that's kind of the idea is people don't take time to sharpen that saw, right? They keep focusing on doing the work and doing the work and doing the work. But if they took that time to step back and kind of analyze where they were, it could really save them so much time. And yeah, it's going to cost you time just to do that, to sit back and kind of look at your process. But if you do it, again, imagine those hours you can save or the weeks you can save in the year simply by finding solutions to small tasks like that you have in your day. It's really fine-tuning those habits. Shrey, before we head out, if people want to work with you, find out more about time-saving tactics, what can they do to reach out to you?
Well, right now you can go subscribe to my newsletter. Every Thursday, I sent out one right now. You have any questions? If you like the newsletter, go like it. If you have questions, comment it. There's a chat in my newsletter. You will find it if you download the Substack app, and we can talk there. I am always there. Any questions you have, anything you want to ask me, the Substack app in my newsletter, you can find me there.
Perfect. All right, ladies and gents, that's it. You got to find yourself some time in the day, make time, carve it out. And usually it comes down to the habits that you have in place and creating some good habits to kind of minimize your time. Taking that time to step back and look at your overall process is going to make a big difference in how you perform. And by the way, if you guys do want to get my AI blueprint, I'm going to drop that website here at the bottom. So it's businessbrospod.com/AI blueprint. And it's how I've been able to save time using AI to create content like this at scale. Yesterday, I did 3 live podcasts, 3 in a day, prepped for all of them. Today, we got 2. Shrey's the first one for the day. How do you do it with saving time? It's exactly what we talked about in this episode. You have to have processes and systems in place. This is one that you can utilize to help create content at scale. Shrey, thank you very much for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home. Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz